Hey, what's already? Welcome back to News Dose, and today was actually a really big day for the marriage of PlayStation and Xbox. You know, they've now joined hands in matrimony, with fanboys temporarily holding their peace. Hopefully that will remain, but the thing is that it sounds like it paid off in a big way for Sony, but still with a bit of a twist. If anything, though, I think this showcases why PlayStation is committing to a more multi-platform future. And we're going to go over all of that today. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go get right into things, though, starting off with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, plus Star-Crossed World. I really don't think that Nintendo could have made this title much longer if they tried, but nonetheless, it's technically the newest release for the Switch 2. It's more or less an enhanced version with a content expansion, and I'm happy to say that if you were a fan of the original Switch 1 game, then you'll likely be pleased by its upgrade and its new content according to critics. It currently has an 85 overall score on Metacritic with a total of 38 reviews, which, I mean, that's a pretty good sample size. And even though the new content is only around 3 hours long, it's still seemingly high quality if you enjoyed the base experience. I mean, you do have to kind of keep in mind that it's a $20 upgrade if you have the base game, so its new content was never expected to be massive. Now, I will say, though, that if you don't already own the base game, that does change things a bit because its asking price might be a little bit steep at $80. I mean, that seems kind of crazy for a Kirby game, and that's the thing for me. I really don't like how Nintendo is pricing their Switch 2 remasters, because that's basically what these are. I mean, you can maybe make a case for a brand new game, but for a remaster, even with new content, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for these to be priced at $80. That's a lot for new consumers to buy into. I don't know. Nintendo has been a little bit greedy to start this generation, but we'll see how this plays out when the data starts to come in. Now, speaking of the Switch 2, though, Square Enix is going to be a big partner for Nintendo this generation. I mean, really, they were one of Nintendo's biggest supporters last generation, especially when it came to their HD 2D games. But now that they have a more capable console from a technical standpoint, this is really going to open the door for some of Square Enix's bigger AAA games, and that includes the long-running Final Fantasy XIV. Square Enix's Yoshi P just mentioned that they are talking to Nintendo about a Final Fantasy XIV port, and that they hope to bring fans good news sometime in the future. So, I mean, they don't necessarily have anything official to announce just yet, but honestly, I'd be surprised if this doesn't happen at some point. To me, it's more of a matter of when rather than if, because this really seems like the inevitable next step for Final Fantasy XIV. One thing that we know about Square Enix is that they're going headfirst into their more multi-platform strategy. In fact, they finally ported Final Fantasy XIV to Xbox not all that long ago, and Nintendo is a much more popular brand, especially in places like Japan where Final Fantasy has a big audience. So it just makes too much sense for this not to eventually happen. However, at the same time, because there's not an official announcement yet, it could be a while, so I'd say don't necessarily hold your breath for an imminent release. Now, one thing that we are going to talk a lot about today, though, is Xbox and PlayStation's new relationship together. It's no longer one-sided, which, we're going to come back to that in here in just a moment. But first, Xbox did drop a surprise PlayStation Plus game. Now, this isn't their first time doing something like this, but you'll notice that their September lineup includes Stardew Valley, Viewfinder, and yes, Psychonauts 2. Now, Psychonauts is owned by Xbox now. They bought Double Fine years ago, and I'm going to tell you this right now. This is quietly one of the best 3D platformers ever made. It's quirky, it's got great characters, and it is insanely creative. So if you haven't already played it, and if you like 3D platformers, please go check it out. But it's once again very interesting to see how willing Xbox is to work with PlayStation, and that includes with their subscription service as well. I mean, you might think that they would be less inclined to do that considering their focus on Xbox Game Pass, but no, they really believe in their multi-platform approach, and they don't mind at all to bring their content to more players, even if that is the PlayStation subscription service. In fact, this could actually be a good way for them to grow the Psychonauts series. It'll put it in front of the eyes of millions of PlayStation Plus subscribers, and that could end up being a great thing if they ever decide to make an eventual third game, which, I mean, hopefully they do. Crossing my fingers. Now, as for PlayStation, though, they're still filling this relationship out. They kind of need to see how things play out for them and how much success they can actually have on Xbox. And that first starts with Helldivers 2. This is actually a very important release for Sony because it'll tell them just how viable this multi-platform strategy is. And well, so far, they've gotten off to a very, very hot start. Arrowhead's CEO revealed that it's already eclipsed 500,000 concurrent players since it first launched on Xbox, which is actually the highest it's been since it first released last year. And that's not a simple coincidence. Xbox plays a huge role in this, not only because Xbox fans are joining the spread of democracy, but also, and maybe even more important, is because the Halo ODST content collaboration. So that gives PC and PlayStation gamers a huge reason to return yet again, not only to join their Xbox friends, but also to play that new content that wouldn't be there without the collaboration from Xbox. Now, one thing about all this, though, is that Steam also plays a massive role in this. This past 24 hours, it peaked at 168,000 players on Steam. And that's something that I want to highlight because Helldivers 2 would not be near as successful as it is without the help from other platforms. And this dates all the way back to last year. And I think Sony is figuring that out. I mean, here's a company that has really struggled with multiplayer games, and that dates all the way back to the PlayStation 3 days, when they were searching for a quote-unquote Halo killer. Now, they did put out a few good games as a part of that strategy, including Resistance and Killzone. I have some very fond memories of those games, but my point is that they've never really excelled at multiplayer games. It's just not their bread and butter. But here they finally have a really successful multiplayer game, and a large part of that comes from other platforms. I mean, would Helldivers 2 be near as successful as it is without something like Steam? I think not. And I think its success on Steam last year really opened their eyes. And I mean, with another big surge of players that aligns with the Xbox launch and its collaboration, I mean, it has the potential to do the exact same thing. If Helldivers 2 continues to grow and to have success, in part because of Xbox, Sony will open the floodgates even more. I mean, at the bare minimum, we will see more PlayStation-developed multiplayer games on PC and Xbox, and possibly even on day one. Fair Games, as one such example, if it doesn't get canceled, because, I mean, honestly, it's not looking all that great, but, I mean, it could very well launch as a completely multi-platform game, and that isn't something that we would have expected just a few years ago from a company like PlayStation. Now, there is still that big question about Sony's big single-player games. We've yet to see them port a big single-player game to either Nintendo or to Xbox. But if they continue to find success with this strategy, and if they see that it doesn't impact their console numbers and their subscriptions and the games sold on their own platform, then, I mean, who knows what will happen within the next 10 years. I mean, it might not happen immediately, but we're already seeing some major changes from Sony that we wouldn't have expected to see from them just 5 years ago. And it does kind of feel like the console walled gardens that we've grown to know just so much are slowly crumbling away. And yes, Helldivers 2 does play a part in that. So let me know what you all think about this. Do you think that Sony will only do this with their multiplayer games, or do you think that there's a chance that Sony will eventually open up for other games as well if they continue to find success the same way that they did on PC? Remember, it only starts with a few games. Now, we do have one more thing to cover because we got another dual-screen console to talk about. Yeah, there's been a wave of these past few months, which is actually really cool for the emulation community. I talked about this in a previous video, but more or less, dual-screen gaming is very difficult to emulate properly because it just doesn't feel good to play on a single-screen setup. So the best way to play DS and 3DS games are still on native hardware despite the enhancements that emulation can offer. Well, that is starting to change because emulation console companies are starting to focus on that niche specifically. Ioneo and AYN have already announced their own dual-screen devices, and now apparently Magic X is joining the fray with possibly the strangest of the three. This here is their take on a dual-screen device, the Magic X Retro DS, which unlike the other two, this seems to be more in line with how the 2DS was designed, but maybe even a little bit more strange than that. I don't know why, but when I look at this thing, it kind of looks like a kid drew a school bus, and then it just kind of came to life. You know, the speakers on the bottom, those are kind of like wheels, but nonetheless, functionality and price are the most important things, and this does have some potential. Its upper screen is a 1280 by 720 4.1-inch display, and then the bottom screen is a 3.4-inch 960 by 720 display. Right now, I still think the most promising dual-screen emulation device is the AYN Thor. It comes in as low as $250, but the Magic X Retro DS could be a good budget option depending on what kind of price they go with. However, it's not expected to release until 2026, so I'll keep you updated as we learn more. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.